Welcome everybody, this is the final half hour. I have simulated 24 hours here in Le Mans. We're on lap 1771. The Ferrari 50 car and the Ferrari 51 are leading 1-2. To give you a bit of a recap of what's happened so far, it's been Ferrari and Peugeots largely at the top over the course of the last few hours. Earlier on in the race we had the other Toyota in the race, Toyota 8, and the Peugeot 93 also involved. The Glickenhaus has led a large amount of the race as well. The Peugeot up there with it. The Porsches fell off early on, as did the other Glickenhaus. Now it is a 5-car battle right up at the top, and going into the LMP2 field we have the LMP2 United Autosport 22 car and the 23 car separated by just about 20 seconds or so. Behind we've got a huge gap back to the Prema, that is about 16 laps or so, and then another 100 seconds back to their teammate, another 370 seconds back to the Alpine, that's another 9 laps, and then you've got the 250 seconds back to the other Alpine, getting in a bit of traffic there. Going into the GT class, we've got the overspeeded Porsche, which we now need to turn all the way back down because it's getting quite erratic here. This Porsche was randomly selected as the car put on the fastest driver speed possible to give us a close fight up ahead, and it's just gotten past this Ferrari car. It's on better condition. It was a few hundred seconds behind. That gap has now been closed. Then we've got a huge gap back, and we have this battle that has somehow sustained the entire 24 hours. The Ferrari 54 against the Porsche 85. And I think people who have been spectating here for a while will know the Ferrari 54 was last for so much of this race, but just at times it gets bursts of luck, and right now 5 seconds ahead of that Porsche 85. That was the only non-artificially close battle outside of the hypercars in this race. The top 5 still very close to each other. We'll be keeping an eye on all the strategy. Just to talk you through how the strategy does go, they have low damage enabled. There is no tyre wear, so no need to change the tyres. However, once the cars are damaged enough, they will come into the pit lane, both to obviously speed up once the damage is repaired, but also to not run the risk of DNFing. Lucky to have no DNFs so far today. We'll keep an eye on any small gaps. The Ferrari's running 1 and 2. The Toyota was down in 5th place. It was about 20-25 seconds off the race lead, maybe an hour or two ago, and it has sort of stabilised in there. The gaps have closed up a little bit. The Glickenhaus was leading just about half an hour ago. It's now down in 5th place. It's got a hell of a way to climb back up to get to that top step of the podium. The Ferrari 51 has completed the best part of the lap. Ahead of it, including the very long Mulsanne straight at this gorgeous Le Mans version made by Danimator, one of the most talented track creators in all of Ultimate Racing 2D2. Right. Goose, who do you reckon's going to win this one come the end? 5 cars in it. Or Kubo? Or, anyone? Prediction? Oh no, my sound's not working. Crap. What have I done wrong? Okay, maybe it's fixed now, I'm not sure. Ah, yeah, I can hear Ewer now. Great. Ewer, who do you reckon's going to win it?
I'm personally a bit of a fan of Glick, but I've got Ferrari down, the leading Ferrari down for the victory today.
Interesting. So earlier on we had predicted the Ferrari 50 for the victory. That was by Pumpkin, and I predicted the Toyota 7. Since then, the Peugeot really stormed in. It led a lot of laps and it looked the dominant force. It split the 2 Ferraris. There was quite a lot of battling up through there. Just to give you a recap, going from recent to less recent, the Glick led with just under an hour left on the clock. The Peugeots versus the Ferraris was happening around 6 PM today. That is an hour ago, so an hour and a half left on the clock. Ferrari versus Peugeot was the main battle there. The Ferrari 54, the car running in the now last place position. There has been a position swap down there. It has just dropped back a bit now, and we're going to have some light rain as we see the Ferrari's hypercar very close. So the Ferrari 54 was the first car to reach 200 pit stops in this 24 hours race. The Ferraris, funnily enough, only at about 7 o'clock local time, 5 o'clock local time, hit the front. That's 2 hours ago now. So with about 2.5 hours left in the race, they actually finally got to the front for the first time in many hours, and that's where they've largely stayed, but with a bit of competition all around. Yeah, interesting stuff going on. Glick looking good earlier on with 3 hours 40 left to run, and we'll go to some earlier posts as well, see if there's anything that we can find just from the little recap. As we see the cars coming into the pit lane now. Finally, it's intermediates for the Ferrari. The Peugeot, the Toyota was leading the Peugeot in second with 5 hours left on the clock. The Glick and the Peugeot were scrapping it out for the lead earlier on this morning. Of course, we had the overnight session, not spectated by anyone, but we got a little bit of HUD cam on that as well. Then looking earlier, yeah, Peugeot and Toyota were also leading high. And Glick led pretty early on today. Looking back at yesterday, if we can. Is there anything going on? Reached 1,000 laps. We're bloody near 2,000, but don't think we're going to get there in the end. We reached lap 1,000 with about 10 and a bit hours on the clock remaining. So I think it would probably take maybe 25, 26 hours to get to the 2,000 lap marker, even with these very, very fast prototype cars at the start. And the Ferraris led early on last night. Glick took the lead for the first time on lap 241 last night. The Peugeot took the lead after an hour and a half of racing. Ferraris and Toyota battling early on. That is about all the recap I can give you. Yeah, so that's interesting. Toyota leads it on the wet weather tyres. The Ferrari 51 on the intermediates it opted for off the latest stop. Cars have already been coming in. The Peugeot 94 has come in for the softs, which is fascinating. And we'll see how that one rolls. Sun's coming out. Toyota in, Ferrari in. Let's see if these are clean stops. The LMP2 Alpines have been sort of getting in the way at times. The Peugeot coming through the final chicanes. It's not going to be enough. It's still going to be fourth for the French manufacturer. The Glickenhaus was leading just about 40 minutes ago and has now massively dropped back. It looks like both of those fighting for the top spot in GT are into the lane as well. The Porsche and the Ferrari. The Ferrari gets held up. The Porsche will get the cleaner stop here, and the Porsche number 60 that was given that fan boost of a sense to aid it to catch up to the lead of the GT class is now up into 17th place on the road. It is of course behind the LMP2 pack by a lot of laps. That's quite a few laps, yeah, like 89 laps. But it is leading its own category. That's what matters. Nothing really going through the minds of the LMP drivers. They're separated by 259, 370, 100, 729 and 14 seconds. So the fight for the lead is still the closest one there, 14 seconds. It was very much neck and neck earlier on, and it's sort of receded. The United Autosports 22 has taken control of that one a bit better. Lower down the hypercar category, things also not that interesting. Glickenhaus 10, well off the back of the cars ahead. The Porsche 6, it's 7 laps down from that, which in turn is 5 laps down from its teammate. In turn, 7 laps down from the Toyota 8, which in turn is another 7 laps down from the Peugeot 93, and that in turn is 2 laps down from our main pack. The Glick 8 seconds off the back of the Ferrari 50, which has dropped down to 4th position. The Peugeot on the podium at the moment, the Ferrari 51 and the Toyota for, I promise to you, probably the first time since this morning at the very least, but maybe even earlier, because this has been a while coming, but it really has taken a while. The Toyota, for the first time in hours and hours and hours, is finally leading with just 20 minutes left on the clock here. This is a fascinating conclusion to what has been the longest ever complete simulated race on Ultimate Racing 2D2. Yeah, pretty cool stuff. Pretty cool stuff indeed. Let's see any battles. The 51 is chasing it down. These hypercars nearly getting onto 200 pit stops, but barring a big old spout of rain. I doubt they'll get there. The Glick has taken a lot of stops, so early on it was definitely in that pack due to its lack of stops, 2 fewer than the competition, despite, 2 fewer than the competition. It was up there, it was doing well. Obviously that's keeping in mind early on where 2 fewer was sort of 30 pit stops versus 28 rather than, you know, the massive pit stop differentials that we have now, with Glick having taken 194 and the Toyota leading having taken 7 fewer. But obviously it all adds up. The rain has definitely been a factor in this one. Yeah, it's been absolutely fascinating. The Toyota and Ferrari still fighting it out over the lead. The Ferrari just takes a little mistake off the final chicanes. The 50 has now caught up. It has a little bit more damage than both the cars ahead, which are pretty spotless with their damage at the moment. Definitely a chunk taken out of that Ferrari. The Peugeot not far behind, and the Glick, which looked to have really dropped back. It was definitely a few hours ago, you know, this sort of margin of 8, 9, 10 seconds off the back of the pack. The Toyota behind it even. There was a point where the Glick 8 seconds off the podium, the Toyota 9 seconds off the Glick. The Toyota's gone through, it's gone through into the lead, and the Glick's just not had the run of the green over the course of the last half hour or so, and it's dropped all the way back down, now 11 seconds off the pack ahead. It's going to need some pit stop miracles to take the 24 hours of Le Mans in Ultimate Racing 2D2 with just 18 minutes left on the clock. Ferrari's battling through the chicane. There's going to be a little bit of damage ensued. The Peugeot, as we head into turn 1, makes a little mistake. It was just up the inside of the Ferrari. Ferrari itself has to go to the outside, can't quite keep it on the racing line. Peugeot back through up the inside, still in 3rd place, benefiting off that Ferrari battle. Remains to be seen if we'll have any rain in this late stage in the race, but I think that'll be absolutely fascinating to see how the teams are able to adapt with that. Of course, the rain has been, I'd say, a vast majority of the pit stops this race due to the frequency of it. Sometimes you'll have drivers pitting within, you know, 4, 3 or even 2 laps of their previous pit stop, thanks to just showers of rain coming and going, and obviously the tyre change being all important to make sure you don't go sliding off through some of the more difficult sections. The Peugeot in 3rd, looking for 2nd, looking to the outside of the Ferrari and looking into turn 1, but not in 2nd place. The Ferrari back up the inside. The Peugeot just takes a little bit of grass going through the 3rd corner there as they head onto the long Mulsanne straight. The Ferrari 50 still up in 2nd, looking to pressure the Toyota. The Toyota has not led for so long in this race. It was just sitting behind, biding its time in 4th or 5th position, and now this is really its chance to make a big charge for the lead. It's there, it's got the track position, but the Ferraris have looked formidable over the course of the last 5 hours or so. They have really taken the fight to the Peugeot. The Peugeot now really take the fight to the Ferrari 50, which gets a penalty for its troubles, and to add insult to injury, takes a bit of grass going through that corner. And as we head over the start-finish line with just 17 minutes left on the clock and 1,786 laps raced so far, it's now 2 seconds off the back of the Peugeot. These cars are taking it in turns to pressure the Toyota out in the lead. The Peugeot is getting closest of anyone we've seen so far, but the Ferrari maybe deliberately holding it up. That's the last place car, 3 seconds off its closest competitor. Peugeot up the inside into Indianapolis, can't quite manage it through the chicanes. Now he won't quite have a chance just yet. Not close enough behind, but as we get into the Porsche curves, it's a really difficult place to make an overtake stick, but you can definitely close up, especially with the Porsche 85 in the way. That's the car that the Ferrari 54 is trying to chase down, and we saw it ahead earlier. We see it behind now. That 54 definitely having some difficulties. More recently, the Peugeot now hits the front with 16 minutes left to race here. Wowee. Look at this, side by side. This is over the podium in the GT category. Admittedly, only 4 cars running in it, but it has been an incredible race, all race long. We've raced 23 hours and 45 minutes here, and we have just 15 left on the clock. And these cars, as slow as they are going, still side by side. Around the outside of Indianapolis, the Porsche goes just keeping traction in the tyres there, and it needs a nice racing line, which it will get into the chicanes. The Porsche moves up into that podium position. Meanwhile, Peugeot under pressure from the Toyota. Toyota back into the lead in the hyper car category class thing. Toyota hits the front once again. Peugeot not done with it. The Ferraris might have to settle for just a single podium position here in the Glickenhaus. The tragic story of the last hour or so. It worked so hard to get all the way up there, and it's still just having this traffic as well. The Porsche 85 now in last place. It's been overtaken by the Ferrari 54 once again. Really great to see those guys scrapping up the back. Another close-ish battle. The leader of the LMP2 category and the second place car, but they are not quite as close as they once were. A few seconds separate them now. 14 minutes left to run here. Any more predictions for a race winner? Mike, any particular sway in a direction? Who do you think's going to be able to get it?
I have no idea, but it would be nice if the 5th place would close up.
I agree. I very much agree with that. I like Glickenhaus. I like them as an underdog shout. I was very happy when they hit the front quite a few times earlier on. I think it'd be very entertaining to see that happen. And Kubo, if you feel like it, who do you reckon's got it?
Ferrari.
Which one?
50.
50. Interesting. That's really interesting. Prediction earlier on this morning from Pumpkin was a Ferrari win. Went for Toyota myself. I'll have to see how it goes. The top 4 now really not that far apart. Just a matter of seconds cover them. The Alpine 36 in the way. They're not really fighting for anything. That car is quite literally in the middle of nowhere. It's in 15th place on the track. Obviously 5th place in its class. But that's still not a podium. And behind it the car is 6 laps down ahead of it. Car 5 laps ahead. It's quite a gap. Peugeot looking quite damaged. Now teams are going to have to start to evaluate the benefits of coming in this late in the race, because there have been certain things, especially more recently, just seeing if cars will actually want to come in at the very end, because the common stint you'd probably see is about 15 laps for a car in a position like this, as Peugeot in the lead. They're just going to have to evaluate if it will be the right decision to bring the car in. 15 laps works out to be about 12 or 13 minutes. So if they do it now, I reckon they have a very good chance, especially if they've got clean air behind, which it looks like they do. The only potential traffic I can see on the radar is a Prema with an Alpine. That's the 63 and 36, with the 63 being 11 laps ahead. Oh, it is. The Peugeot is in. The Peugeot in, and here are the 2 LMP cars, and it is out ahead of them. And that is a really important part of the race. It's now got that clean air ahead. The only cars, the 3 cars physically ahead of it on track, are all hypercars. It is fighting for position, and this is incredible stuff. The Peugeot now on a rampage. It's stopped. It needs to come back through. Right up to the back of the 50 Ferrari. It's got significantly more damage. Should be a lot slower in a straight line. Can the Peugeot exploit this down the Mulsanne? It's incredible. We've had nearly 23 hours and 50 minutes of racing, and it all comes down to this battle at the end. The Glick, don't forget, it's now only 5 seconds off the back of this pack. It would be unbelievable to see it come back through. I don't see it happening, but who knows? It's the magic of Le Mans. The Toyota still leads here. Genuinely, you wouldn't have thought it from seeing it in real life, but it was a huge underdog. The Ferraris and the Peugeot, just such dominant stints in the race. I mean, Vlad, what were your observations from earlier? Who did you think was going to win that we were watching not long ago?
Well, I wasn't sure the entire race, because the front runners were all the time we were switching places, switching positions. Some did stupid strategic decisions, like the Ferrari when they double stacked and lost a lot of time. I think this might come back to haunt them right now because the Toyota is leading comfortably.
There's no doubt about it that the Ferraris had an inability to work together. Of course, all the other cars, you've got the Toyota 7 leading the race. Oh, the Toyota 7's just dodged the pit lane. I think all the hypercars will get through just fine, actually. That's really interesting. Just a second later with that cloud announcement, and the Toyota would have been into the pit lane and out of the lead of the race. And it has just been saved, but we've got some wet conditions. The 8 is coming back through. This is the interesting part. The Toyota 7, of course, leading the race on lap 1796. The Toyota 8 in 7th place, 10 laps down. The Peugeot in 4th place, lap 1796. The other Peugeot, the 93 car, 2 laps down. The Glickenhaus in 5th place, 1796. And the other Glickenhaus, 30 laps down on its teammate. Huge issues for them early in the race, and they were never able to recover 30 laps down from the lead hypercars. The Ferraris are the only 2 cars remaining, well, basically since the others dropped off, I think since the last Peugeot dropped off in the early hours of the morning, that really had to work together. And I think that's massively cost them time in some areas. The double stacking, they've been so close for large areas of the race. The double stacking, I think, has been a nightmare for them. The Peugeot looking to get them now up the inside, heading into the next left-hand chicane. The 50 tries to fight it, maybe even trying to play bumper cars with the 94. It gets a better run out through the corner, but it might not get a better run through here. It does. The 50 maintains the gap ahead of the 94. I'll invite back to the stage Mark Andrews, who commentated late last night some of the running in the Endurance Championship in this very race. Mark, your observations from last night and your observations from right now, what do you remember from then? What's changed here, and what are your predictions for the final results?
I remember absolutely nothing. I had a drink and at a bar close in Le Mans, so I remember absolutely nothing.
Well, still.
Well, it really is a shame. Yeah, it really is a shame because the last evening was actually pretty packed with action. So, is that a Peugeot that got a penalty?
Yeah, Peugeot with a penalty. They've not been able to get through on the Ferrari 50. There's only 7 minutes and 50 seconds
Yeah,
remaining.
was that the Peugeot that was leading the last evening?
Yeah.
Because it looked like a certain Peugeot victory back then, with a sprinkle of Glickenhaus there and then. But it massively dropped off in the morning, as you said, and now the game is on for Toyota number 7, Ferrari 51 and Ferrari 50.
I mean, the 7's re-emergence back through the pack has just been remarkable. I agree with you. The Peugeot last night, definitely Peugeot and Glick running 1-2 for a good stint of the evening session, was incredible to see, because those are 2 big underdogs here. You'd think the Ferraris or the Toyota has it, and as it ends up, we might just be getting the result that you'd sort of book in at the start of the day, the Toyota leading the Ferraris to the podium. But it's just not been that simple the whole time. The Peugeot, even earlier on this afternoon, was fighting those Ferraris with everything it had. And look, it's still got so much more life left in the car, but it's not got that much time left. They head on to lap 1,800 here at Le Mans. That is an incredible tally to have. 191 pit stops for the Ferrari, currently running in 2nd place, and might just be settling for 2nd place at the moment. The Glickenhaus, that's a few laps down, I say a few, that's quite generous, might be in there to cause some chaos if it can. This is a big old finish. It is catching. It's right there. Oh my god, look at that. All the way down.
For a move, yeah.
Into the inside? No.
Oh, no, did make a mistake.
Mark,
he has to keep his composure. Yeah.
What's the chicane corners called, Mark?
At the Mulsanne Street?
No, the ones after Indianapolis.
He goes for the move.
Ferrari goes for the lead. Holds up Toyota. The 54 also in that as well. Still chasing that podium down in the GT. What's it called?
Porsche curves, you mean?
No, before that.
4.
Before the Porsche curves. The little, like, left-right.
Indianapolis, and then you have Anage.
Anage, right.
So Ferrari didn't stick it into the Anage, but made it count on the start-finish straight.
Absolutely, up the inside into 1, and just taking a bit of grass as we see there. Often over
You have
braking.
5 for P2 now.
Look at this,
Between
the
the Peugeot and
Peugeot.
the Toyota
It's
into
going
the
for
inside
it.
of Porsche curves.
Oh, the Alpine 36
dangerous
in the
to
way
fly.
as well. Peugeot's going to get a great run down the main straight if it can. Pulls out 3 wide down through there. Into turn 1. Clean through turn 1. Peugeot clean into second place. Will that late pit stop come off? It's got 5 minutes to catch that Ferrari that is only 8/10 ahead of it on track. And that
Look at
Ferrari
it.
has
It's catching so
significantly
much.
more damage. The Glickenhaus, meanwhile, has caught the Ferrari 50. This is the fight for 4th. The 50 was 1-2 with the other Ferrari car not long ago, has massively dropped off. This could be the pass for the lead. The final one into the chicanes. The 51
No.
back at the outside. The
Oh, yeah.
Peugeot just manages to get the run and through the Porsche curves will end lap 1802 in the lead of the race, having stopped with 12 minutes left on the clock. 4 minutes to go now, and can anyone stop this Peugeot? It looked so good for a Toyota Ferrari podium. It's now looking like Peugeot, Ferrari, Toyota, and a Glick in behind as well. Fight for second.
No.
Toyota very close behind as well.
Not
Meanwhile,
just for the Peugeot to be clean and do not get any more damage by the lapped cars.
absolutely,
Just be clean and get the win. That's our task now for the number 94.
Ferrari still chasing here. We've got good fights in both of the categories, but the Ferrari 54 still hot on the heels of the Porsche, as well as the Porsche 60, which is now just dropping back from the 21. But we've got the Peugeot, we've got the Ferrari, we've got the Toyota, the Glick, now clear ahead of the 50, but more damage on that car, a lot less on the 50. That must have stopped, and that's why the Glick was able to get him. Is that a stop too late? He's coming back, but they're going side by side down the straight. The Glick doesn't have the straight line speed down that wide main straight. Meanwhile, back up in
Ferrari,
front.
yeah, might be a threat for the lead.
Lots
Because
of lap
Peugeot
cars.
is in a world of pain right now. Look, it's a lot of back markers just blocking the way, blocking the passage. It's not smooth sailing for Peugeot,
Oh,
and
definitely
Ferrari
not.
might just catch up.
He's got a bit of clean air ahead of him now, though. Definitely through the Porsche curves.
Yeah,
no
but
cars running.
Ferrari is a stronger car in the curve, so like the first part of the circuit before Mulsanne.
True. True. Got through. You could argue there might have been a bit of strategy there with a Ferrari GT car and a Prema
Yeah, 7 is
LMP2.
Toyota is speeding.
Toyota
Toyota
7.
has speed.
It's in.
7's in.
Yeah.
Will that change position? The 50
will.
can come back through and take third place, and the Glick not too far behind either. We've got a fight for the win, we've got a fight for the podium, and we've only got 150 seconds left on the clock here. Peugeot
Oh,
still...
Fight for the win. Let's be clear. The Peugeot is just driving away from the Ferrari 51 right
I
now.
wouldn't be too confident.
looking
Never
like-
count out a Ferrari. Never count out a Ferrari here.
Okay.
Looks
Sorry.
like it's finished there.
I don't know.
It's
There's
never
always
finished
something.
until
There's
the fat
always
lady
something.
sings.
It's rain or it's a lapped car. You can never count it out. The Peugeot has gone unlucky many a time. It's so used to
Coming
fighting this 51. The 51 might have to be in soon because that is a pretty big heft. Is that white smoke that I see coming out of the back of that 51?
Could
It
be.
is.
Oh, touching now with the pop.
More damage for the
contact.
51. The 50 back up onto the podium with the Toyota 7 in the lane. The Glick pretty much out of it. The clouds coming. Might we get some late rain here? We've only got 100 seconds left in this 1,440 minute race. Unbelievable action all the way through. The Peugeot driving off. The Ferrari, another collision. Will it be in with just a lap or so to go?
It has to be. It has to be.
Will they risk it?
I mean,
They will.
No.
Ferrari
Oh!
51 stays out. Ferrari 50 would have easily picked up that second and maybe even a podium for the Toyota.
I wonder what
The
happened
51.
with the Toyota 7 car because it was so close being right behind the number 50, but now
Drop back
just
massively.
with a new stop, it's nowhere.
You've got to ask, when will this race end?
In 56
What, a
seconds.
minute?
Well, not quite, because he's got to get to the end of the lap. I'm aware of the timer, but you've got to decide which lap it's on. If he drives slowly enough, he could make this string out a 44-second rest of the... No, he couldn't.
Yeah, but this is
It
not
currently
good
looks
enough.
like the number 94 Peugeot is on its way to get a win, which seemed very unlikely in this morning, because they dropped back massively, but now they made a comeback in the final minutes.
final
last
lap
lap already.
here in Le Mans, lap 1808 here, and the Peugeot 94 has made an inspired late strategy call. 14 seconds remain on that clock. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 24 hours are up, and the Peugeot just has to get through the Porsche curves down through the final chicanes. And after such a long race, the longest in the history of UR2D simulations, Peugeot win the 24 Hours of Le Mans. The Ferrari 51 looks like it'll clinch second place, and it's a double Ferrari podium. It gets there in the end. The Toyota pitted late. That was the wrong call. No damage at the end, but no time to make the podium back up either. The rain is going to come. The Glickenhaus will take 5th, but what about the rest of the categories when the timer ends? It looks like the LMPs are sorted up. It's the 22 ahead there. What will the GT's fruition here? The 19 place car still ahead, and we can see here, after 1,808 laps, it is the 94 Peugeot hypercar that wins the UR2D 24 Hours of Le Mans. The Ferrari 51 clinches the second place in the end, and the 50 the third. That was a result that looked likely more so this afternoon in that period of particular dominance. Toyota, leading with just 20 minutes to go, will be gutted that nothing materialised, not even a podium for them here in Le Mans. The Glickenhaus 708 looked so good, was up in the podium, was an unlikely leader for large parts of the race, but it couldn't make it happen in the final 40 minutes. They dropped down to 5th at the end. Then, looking at the hypercars that were detached from the main pack, the Peugeot 93 kept a respectable 2 laps away from the main pack despite its massive drop-off in the early morning. Both Peugeot cars experiencing mechanical issues then. The Toyota 8 looked a really strong contender early on. It dropped off massively, 500 seconds off the race leader at the end. The Porsches looked pretty hopeless from the beginning, to be honest. The 5 ahead of the 6 by quite a distance, and the Glickenhaus 709 rounds out the hypercars. Then, winner of the LMP2 category, it's the United Autosport 22 car, making a 1-2 for the team. The team gave the 23 car all the extra beans it could at the very end, but it didn't quite manage to bridge that gap up, finishing just 17 seconds behind the teammate after being level pegging with about an hour or 2 to go. The Premers then Trojan horsing the rest of the way down. One of them on the podium, it's the 63, the 9 just missing out, and the Alpines not impressing in the LMP2 category today. Then the wildcard Porsche takes the fastest lap here, 40-second lap time, 10 seconds faster than you'd expect of that car class. They'll be having a look at that after the race, but it's the Iron Lynx Porsche car there that finishes in second place, and it was the Ferrari 21 car, the AF Corsa, that won by only about 5 seconds come the end of that GT category. And the race-long battle, the unlikely winner of that, the Ferrari 54 AF Corsa on the podium, being in last place of the runners for so many hours of the race, did get the Porsche in the end by about a second. That's been all for the Le Mans 24 Hours on Ultimate Racing 2D, the first ever, and hopefully not the last. We'll see you next time.